Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Camp Nightmare Fuel. Produced and created by Lord Starfox.
Hello campers. Could everyone please report to the campfire area? This is where your camp counselors will begin tonight's fireside tales. Please give your attention to the illustrious Lord Starfox and the members of the Midnight Society. Counselors, take it away.
Goosebumps. The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Werewolf Skin, Part 1 and Part 2. My creatures of the night, once again, it is Camp Nightmare Fuel time here on Lord Starfox Radio. Of course, we do have two of my sidekicks returning for some more madness tonight. They are already sitting around the late night fire as we burn the midnight timber into the early hours of the morning. Of course, I am referring to Intuitive Taurus Moon, aka Susie, a member of the Midnight Society science team, and also Mr. Barber, aka Bigfoot's Barber Shop. Yes, also a member of the good old Midnight Society. We are going to be diving into some legendary old school topics that involve one of my favorite artists when I was 11, and I still actually find myself watching the good old Goosebumps sometimes before I head to bed. I'm not talking about the newer ones, no. I'm talking about like the old school ones that are actually pretty dark in comparison to some of the newer ones. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the Werewolf of Fever Swamp. And of course, Werewolf Skin, Part 1 and 2. R.L. Stine is such a legend. Well, Susie and Mr. Barber, are we ready to take a walk into werewolf country tonight?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was around when these Goosebumps were first written, so yeah, let's take a walk down memory lane.
Yes, this is absolutely epic. Spoiler alert to the audience, we will be diving into the premises and pretty much dissecting and talking about these whole entire books slash the mini series you can watch. So if you do not want to have it spoiled and would like to watch The Werewolf of Fever Swamp, also Wolfskin Part 1 and 2, you can find those on the good old Goosebumps YouTube page. Then come back and check us out because it is time for us to read some Goosebumps, starting with The Werewolf of Fever Swamp here. This is so legendary, meaning well done, cool premise. Starts off with a family that has moved to a really remote area that looks a lot like somewhere in Tennessee or the LBL or such. You have a husband and wife that are, I believe, biologists or some sort of experts and are doing observations on deer and are trying to replenish the area with deer. And then they have their teenage son and they also have their teenage daughter. In this area, they end up meeting one of the neighbors who's around his age. This neighbor seems to be a little strange. He gets his newfound friend to follow him into the swamp, even though he had been told by both his mother and father to stay out of the swamp. But he follows his newfound friend right up in there. And this is one of the first times they have a run in with the hermit, which is being blamed for supposedly being this strange werewolf in the area. Yet you still can't really tell if it's a lore or what's going on here. Yet now, at night, all of a sudden they start hearing strange howls. Well, the teenage son goes downstairs, and what happens? The door busts open. You think he's being attacked by a werewolf, but of course not. What is it? A massive German shepherd that is just apparently, in his parents' eyes, the one making all the noise outside. Well, as time goes on, those deer that are being kept outside get absolutely eviscerated. And as this episode goes on more and more, the family, specifically the parents and the teenage daughter, believe this dog is actually responsible for this. Yet the teenage son is like, no way, this dog is responsible for this. And then they end up finding out right as they're going to remove the dog from the house that the dog is actually innocent and is there protecting them. No, it's not the hermit. You know who actually becomes the werewolf? Of course, it's that strange teenager that comes over originally and wants the other one to head off into the swamp with him. So well done. Super cool how it touches into the lore of everything. You have the remote area, you have the swamp aspect. Pretty cool. Susie, what do you think about all that? And then toss it to Mr. Barber.
Yeah, I actually really like this story. I did think it was a little sad that he couldn't save his friend in the end. And then, of course, the cliffhanger of that he's going to be turned into a werewolf. I read the synopsis and it was a little different from the movie that I watched, that he had actually gotten bit by his friend. And so in the end, he becomes a werewolf and goes out and hunts with his dog and his friend. So that was interesting to me. Um, yeah, but super creepy, really well done. And yeah, of course, now I don't know, maybe I'm getting too soft in my old age, but it was pretty good.
I never read them. I was too busy with Incredible Hulk comics, unfortunately, but the books were amazing. I mean, they were just so insanely popular. And then it does sound like, due to Hollywood taking over, that they may have changed things in the books a little bit. It's not the first time they did it with Jaws, but I mean, it is a very cool story, and the cliffhanger was very cool, and the fact that they pick it up in a book or two later was terrific.
Yes, so excellent by both of you right there for sure. Everything about the old school Goosebumps is really just so legendary in how it all unfolds. Obviously, I'm a big vampire slash werewolf guy. Had to sit down with two of my sidekicks and talk about some of the original OG 11-year-old horror aspects for sure, because I remember staying up late watching those and with my overactive imagination, which helps me be creative. I would always think that there were werewolves outside now chasing me. Humorous, yet at the same time, just shows you how your mind can run pretty rampant for sure. And what's good about the old school Goosebumps is the production's good. It's going to be a little bit outdated with certain aspects, yet at the time, great costumes, great camera work. The acting was actually pretty decent for sure. that definitely is by far still one of my favorite books of all time. Yet, before we dive into our next awesome book by Mr. R.L. Stine, is there anything else you legendary minds would like to add to the good old Werewolf of Fever Swamp?
Well, like I said, the book kind of led off into more of a happy type of an ending, and the movie, or the little series, was more of a cliffhanger ending. Like, could he be a werewolf? Could he not? He goes out and starts howling at the moon, but he didn't change. So, is he just messing with his dog, or is it just gives you the vibe of, is he going to turn into a werewolf? Is he going to start terrorizing the neighborhood like his friend did? I don't know. It's just kind of, it was really fun.
The cliffhanger was probably because it was a series, so the way Susie describes it sounds like the perfect way to lend into the next episode for sure.
Yes, again, great stuff by both of you. Yes, it is time for Werewolf Skin. This again was separated into two smaller episodes. Fast forward, we get it all as one. I have read the book, obviously. I have seen the TV episode, obviously. No qualms with either of them. Actually, big fan of both. This starts off with a teenager who is visiting his aunt and uncle. They are basically Indiana Jones type individuals that just travel all around, do all kinds of cool, gnarly stuff, go on safaris, deal with remote and exotic animals, all kinds of interesting stuff. They're also into photography, whereas this teenager is really big into photography as well. He ends up heading up to their house, not extremely remote, yet there's some forest around and such where he can go out and start taking out his good old camera. Well, he ends up finding something strange next door where he originally believes, and it gets you believing, that these neighbors or whatever's going on next door is pretty bizarre. Yet as it starts to unfold more, you realize, wait a second, what's going on with the good old uncle and aunt here? They seem to have some interesting aspects occurring. Well, what happens? He ends up catching on camera his aunt and uncle transforming and more or less putting their skin back into these boxes. It's so creepy, so bizarre. Yet again, it's got that dark twist with the good old R.L. Stine aspect where he knew how to make something scary without having to dive into a ton of graphic content or graphic vocabulary. He just really knew how to tell the story.
Where you got the creepy house and things going on, but then the way the summary went, the fact that supposedly they take the skins and break the curse from the house, only to find out to have that little, swerve at the end that the girl didn't need them. She had her own werewolf skin, was a nice little touch on keeping the audience and the readers on their toes through the whole thing. Whether the movie stuck to that or not, I don't know. But, the way the book left it, the fact that she turned out almost being like the boss and didn't need the aunt and uncle was pretty cool.
I read, kind of the synopsis and stuff like that, but I was kind of curious, like, okay, where did this curse originate from? Did they go into detail about that? And if so, like, especially the girl, what was her point in breaking the curse on the aunt and uncle, but then keeping it on her and then going after the nephew? I was a little bit confused about that. Maybe you can help clear that up for me.
Let's nerd out. Yes, they point in the direction that the aunt and uncle got this strange ability, more or less, when they were on some remote journey. I also believe they hint at something to do with bringing that teenage girl back as well. So she's probably the whole culprit from the beginning and then scratched them or something, which caused them to come back to have this werewolfism. So cool though with his skin, because Mr. Barber was just talking about how he was big on some shows where they chime more into that lore. And here you got the skin that they put on and off, and then that scene where the nephew was trying to bury his aunt and uncle's werewolf skins in the graveyard before the moon comes up, and the skins are basically like their own wolves, and they're trying to fight out of the casket that he is putting in the ground with them in it, and he's having to beat it down with a shovel. It's so epic how they did that.
Okay, I'm totally going to have to watch that now.
Mr. Barber, what else do you think about the good old werewolf skin, part 1 and 2?
The aspect, like Susie brought up, is it's weird that they broke the curse for the aunt and uncle. It makes you wonder where they're going to go from there. What do you think, Susie?
The werewolves I grew up with like what was it? American Werewolf in London, which was way more graphic and creepy. But then you also had the funny ones like Teen Wolf. So I don't know. I'm just kind of like, how would this all work? How would it all pan out? You know what I mean? Is it all about curses? I was kind of diving down a deep rabbit hole. And then I was like, the second one that we're talking about sounds a lot like skinwalker type behavior. You know what I mean?
I love it right there. Yeah, it totally does with the whole having to wear the pelt. Definitely a big aspect of being a skinwalker for sure, which I know Ryan Tremblay, a member of our science team, and some other great minds like Nuxium would say that it would be quite hard for a skinwalker to get the quote unquote pelt of a dogman or a werewolf, right? Meaning that's why in indigenous lore, it's always he or she that walks on all fours, meaning like coyotes, bears, wolves, etc. They never really say anything about becoming a monstrous creature. Pretty interesting. R.L. Stein, even though it wasn't directed to be these gruesome aspects, did a really good job staying true to lore. Pretty much everything he did cover in the good old Goosebumps series, meaning you can dive in. Not sure how many were in the original. Yet so much they dive into is gnarly. Sea creatures, you got vampires, you got basically something that's like Swamp Thing in one of them. You had what Susie had mentioned about a haunted mask being one of her favorite ones. Anything you can think of, eating worms, it was done in that series. I was even a fan when it turned into some of choosing your own destination aspects in the book, meaning you could choose your own path. Those were cool, but the OG ones, as I had mentioned to Susie when I was 11, I would save up lunch money for the book fairs because, yeah, we were like super poor, obviously. My mom was like, yeah, no Goosebumps books for you. But yet I was like, yeah, mom, Goosebumps books for me. I would just save up my lunch money and then go to the book fair when it came through. And I was so huge into vampires and werewolves. Rest in peace, mom, because she was always a big Halloween person and she was more into witches, but did like werewolves and vampires. So then, of course, fast forward a little bit, I got lucky and was able to have the whole entire series bought for me. I just read them all so many times. Definitely some pretty gnarly stuff. Mr. Barber, which one would you say was more of your favorite? That same question will be for you after Susie as well.
Probably the second part, 1 and 2, the skins, just because and I was going to allude to that, and Susie beat me to the punch, was the fact that, they had to put the skins on, which kind of sounded more like skinwalker material. And then the fact that the twist at the end with breaking the curse on the aunt and uncle, great twist. It sounds like something I definitely need to take the time and sit down and watch.
Yeah, I think my favorite, just from the synopsis and what you've told us, is the werewolf skin. And it also brings to mind when I was younger and I would read a lot about selkies. And if you guys know anything about selkies, they are like Celtic mer people, basically. So they're the seals out there, the otters, and in the ocean. and they would hang up their skins and become human, and they could only return to the sea if they could put their skins back on, and they would keep their skins in a trunk in a home. Like if you were able to capture one with the skin off and steal their pelt and go lock it away, then they would remain human for as long as you had that pelt. And that really reminded me of that. And I kind of wonder if that's where R.L. Stein borrowed a little bit from, because in all my studies and all the horror stuff I would watch, I never remember seeing anything about a werewolf and having to take their pelts off and put them away every day. That was really kind of cool to me that he blended a little bit of that.
Love it by both of you. Yeah, super cool. Taking on the wolf skin and putting it back in the box daily, pretty much as if an outfit. Super cool. I can't really pick a favorite. I'm down with both of them. They both have some really awesome aspects. And of course, they both have some things that maybe could have been done a little bit better. Yeah, overall, I personally would give both of those on a scale from 1 to 5, at least 4.3 to 4.5, meaning those are my favorite books by R.L. Stein. What about you, Susie? What would be your favorite two books by R.L. Stein? Same question would be for Mr. Barber after.
So, like I said earlier, the haunted mask actually kind of made me panic. And maybe it's because I'm a little claustrophobic. And I was like, man, this really hits home. So that one was really interesting to me. But then, as an old mom and having my kids watch them, and my daughter was always like, frightened of clowns, and that would make me chuckle. So anything with clowns in it by R.L. Stein, I kind of got a little giggle out of watching her.
Pretty good synopsis. This is a nice lighthearted change for coming up on Halloween, and the fact that we can go back and still watch these gems, and the books are still great.
That is absolutely awesome stuff by both of my legendary hosts. Wood, starting with Susie, then of course Mr. Barber, as our fellow Midnight Society member, JJ Messenger, always says, give yourself a shameless plug. Let everybody know where they can find you, what you're going to be up to. Super important just to give us a like. If you aren't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure to share around our content. Get the algorithm to realize that, hey, we can be cool as well. Also, yes, those ads, I do understand sometimes if you're really jamming out to something, you're enjoying it. Those ads are super important, though. We strategically put those there, and as small content creators, that really helps us out. Also, please make sure to check out the good old merch store down below.
Well, I will let you know where to find me. Intuitive Taurus Moon, and I post weekly readings, so you can check your tarot for energy, any kind of future type predictions. And then on Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I'm on with Pocatello Paranormal Research on YouTube, and we give free live mini readings and really cool paranormal topics. So please join us there.
And you can find me on Bigfoot's Barbershop. And Friday nights at 9 p.m., you can find me on Bigfoot Outlaw Network. That's simulcast on Bigfoot's Barbershop as well.
This will be the conclusion of the meeting of the Midnight Society for the early hours of the morning. Yes, Susie, as well as Mr. Barber, do have other endeavors they need to attend to. No worries, though. Yes, they are both a weekly host over here on Midnight Lycanthropy. You can always check them out. And Mr. Barber is times 2 weekly. Yes, who knows? You could be finding them on the Midnight Lycanthropy podcast, or maybe here on Camp Nightmare Fuel. Or we could also catch them on When Crows Speak. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Love both of you.
Thank you.
Love and appreciate both of you.
Nightmare Fuel, created by Lord Starfox.